Welcome to SAT TV's news. I am Shanna Esprit, your presenter. Among the major developments, Dominicans urged to unite on OECS Day. Jamaican national enters guilty plea to defrauding U.S. senior citizens. Afghans take nationwide security lead from NATO. And in sports, 4 Windies members to participate in Windies A team to face Sri Lanka. Details of these will follow.
Me say we just get the remedy for the pagan them. Me just get the remedy for bad mind and jealousy. Who want to see me dead? Me just get the remedy. SAT TV, Jammy say. You don't know a Javinci you watching SAT TV. Lord, is it straight triple dose.
Welcome back. Tukari residents opened their hearts and hands as they welcomed visitors and ministers to participate in their celebration of the Feast of St. Anthony and Father's Day. The event, which concluded a week of activities, was celebrated at the chapel in Tukari on Sunday, 16th June. Father Sharpless gave a brief background of the St. Anthony.
St. Anthony is a very famous saint. He was declared saint less than 1 year after his death. Very unusual. The process is a very long and draining process. But it seems like his life was so impacted that he was declared saint right just a year within or after his death. Though his work was in Italy, he was born in Portugal. He first joined the Augustinian order and then left it and joined the Franciscan order in 1221 when he was 26 years old.
Father Shapley stated the importance of understanding these men who have been put forward to us as models of faith. A model of any faith, he said, is someone who has been tested, tried, and withstood all challenges to stand up for what they believe. In his address to the congregation, he admonished them to live a life that is pleasing unto God, as every evil we do comes back to haunt us.
But it is clear that God's forgiveness superseded the law, and David was granted the gift of continued life. Because David was repentant, because David asked forgiveness, because David was not defensive, because David said, me, I don't know nothing, no. David's life was spared.
In closing, he expressed these encouraging words. We need a world where people not only speak forgiveness, but by experiencing forgiveness, show forgiveness to each other. Honorable Reginald Austri, Minister for Land, Housing Settlement and Water Resource Management, who was present at the church service, expressed his satisfaction and success of the week's activities.
Remember our activities started last Sunday with a sports day. It was wet and it was raining, but we had a good time. On Wednesday we had a discussion, and I need to thank Ian Douglas and his office and his ministry for putting such a wonderful package together, for very educational. And I'm sure that those of you who didn't attend must have heard about it, and you regretted the time, a very good time. But there are others to come, and we hope that more people will participate in those activities.
Mr. Austri asked the fathers to take note of the admonition of Father Sharpless and hope to do better. In more news, a total of 54 emergency personnel recently completed a 2-week training workshop on mass casualty management and emergency care and treatment. During this training, the participants were taught vital skills for assessing and caring for patients at the scene of an accident or catastrophe. This was important, said Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Johnson, as there is a need to strengthen our response and preparedness to deal with mass casualties and emergencies.
Following this training, I'm confident that we'll be able to reduce deaths, direct injuries, emotional and psychological sufferings, which may have otherwise resulted from mass casualty and emergencies. We are therefore very grateful and extremely grateful for the technical and financial support provided by the Pan American Health Organization for this series of training and retraining, which was done in collaboration with the Ministry of Health. I am personally aware that our country program specialist for Dominica, Mrs. Shirley Augustine, was passionate in ensuring that we conduct this training. Her passion for conducting the training was fueled by an incident which took place some months ago, which heightened the need for training and retraining of our first responders.
However, the course instructor, Mr. Prita Burgess, who is an emergency response expert, pointed out several weaknesses in Dominica's response to emergencies and advised the participants that they needed to have protocols for emergency response. There needs to be much better dialogue between the nurses and the staff at the hospitals and emergency personnel from the fire department, as well as a multi-sectorial approach for emergencies at all times, he explained.
Accountability. That was one thing that really I have a concern with, and it is something that I think that the heads of the departments will have to look at in terms of how do you as emergency response personnel account for patients. Ms. Augustine just said it. Ms. Augustine just said it. You have tourists coming to the island and everybody nowadays looking for financial gain. You make a mistake, you will be sued. The case that she spoke about on the exercise is very real, so it's not something that was made up. I recently, a few months ago, worked with the British Foreign Office, and that same comment came up. And that was, it was hitting at the government in the specific country that we were in. Because they brought it up because the person was from a foreign country and they made a big thing of it. Yeah? And we don't need those negative comments in our countries.
He advised the participants to work on improving the way patients are handed over between the hospital staff and the emergency personnel staff responding to the incident.
All of you young men and women here have the knowledge in emergency response. I am proud of you. You worked hard and you show that you know what you're doing. But the protocols, equipment, and taking care of the equipment, that's another thing. It's okay for the bosses to give you equipment, but you have to respect and appreciate what they've given you and take care of it. Because if you don't take care of it, you can't expect them to keep trying to find money to give to you. And I'm saying that to all of you persons who just completed the ECAP training. You have to take care of your equipment and treat it like it is yours.
Pan American Health Organization PAHO representative Ms. Shirley Augustine noted emphasis should be placed on documentation, and emergency responders should document the condition in which they receive the patient and the patient's condition when they arrive at the healthcare facility. She believes this training significantly improved the need for improvement in the care received by casualties when they are being transported from the scene of the accident to the hospital.
I remember PAHO held a simulation exercise in one of our Caribbean countries, which shall remain unnamed. And there was an expatriate participating in the exercise. And when he was interviewed at the end of the exercise, he said, when I was picked up, I was alive and I was glad I was being taken to hospital. But by the time I got to hospital, I was dead. So you can fill in the blanks. That means that when he was picked up, he expected something to be done for him. But nothing was done for him. It's like he was just transported, and maybe the way in which he was transported, so by the time he arrived at the hospital, he was dead.
She added, as service providers and first responders, they also have a duty to protect themselves with the necessary documentation when dealing with patients. Ms. Augustine went on to say it is her hope that the positive impacts of this workshop will show everyday awareness of the emergency personnel. Take a look at some of the participants receiving their certificate of participation following this workshop.
Calvin Etinoff, Jeremy August, Diego Fountain, Kevin Wrighton, Kennelton Francis, Kendall Laura, Trevor Charles, Geoffrey Thomas,
In other news, very soon Dominica will stage the second annual bridal fair. This caters for exquisite weddings on the Nature Isle of the Caribbean in an effort to attract couples to the destination. Mr. Anthony Paul of Dream Wedding stated, the main objective of the bridal fair is to interconnect the customers with the wedding planners while trying to benefit from the overseas market. This can only be accomplished if we showcase our product. What we want the fair to look like is a true visualization of all the persons involved in the process of bringing a wedding to life, Mr. Paul added. Chief Executive Officer of the Discover Dominica Authority, Mr. Colin Piper, said the DDA is pleased to be part of this initiative.
As most would know, the Ministry of Tourism and Discover Dominica Authority have set an ambitious goal of 90,000 stayover visitor arrivals by 2015. And in order to achieve this target, it can no longer be business as usual. And so at the Discover Dominica Authority, we have to look for different niche markets to build that base upon which we can continue to grow our tourism numbers and also tourism's contribution to the national economy. And as most would know, the romance sector is huge. And we want to now participate and compete in the subsectors of destination weddings and honeymoons.
He urged persons involved in the wedding industry to use this second annual bridal fair as an avenue to form alliances and strategic partnerships so that the value proposition Dominica puts out are second to none. Not only does Dominica have sun, sand, and sea for weddings, we are blessed with a lot more, such as the rainforest and waterfalls, which we must use to our advantage to invite visitors here, Mr. Piper added. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Mrs. Claudia Bellot, commended those involved in the planning of this bridal fair, as this will aid visitor arrivals to Dominica.
Tourism in Dominica must continue to grow its contribution to the economy. We are all very much aware of the major industries which contribute to Dominica's economy. And we know that currently tourism is the lead contributor to the economy of Dominica. We need to grow the sector. And from the point of view of the Ministry of Tourism, our focus is on diversifying our product in order to take advantage of the assets that we have, our scenic landscapes, our cultural heritage, and our historic sites.
We want more and more couples and their families to come to Dominica to celebrate their special day, she stated.
Of course, the growth of the weddings and honeymoon subsector also benefits both you as service providers and also the couples who are tying the knot in Dominica, since their memories of their wedding day in such a beautiful location will always remain with them. You as service providers, you will also benefit as you provide your excellent services to these couples for their occasion, for their special occasion. Of course, we also want to see the linkages with other subsectors of the economy, such as our flower growers, to provide flowers for your flower designs, to our caterers in the hospitality sector, and also to our transportation providers.
The recently amended Marriage Act, Chapter 3501 states that visitors can wed the same day they arrive on the island. Mrs. Bellot noted they are also working closely with the Ministry of Social Services and Community Development to ensure that when the local weddings liaison and the persons come into the Ministry of Social Services, they can receive prompt and efficient service. The bridal fair will be hosted at the Windsor Park Stadium on August 11th, 2013. In other stories, on Tuesday, June 18, 2013 marked 32 years since the establishment of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. 32 years of facilitating efforts by the 9 member states to further develop the people of the OECS region through various programs and projects in several cases with the help of the international donor community. The OECS was established on June 18, 1981, with the member states Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Anguilla, and the British Virgin Islands. I want Dominicans to appreciate the importance of unity in everything they do, as this is vital in the survival of the OECS, was the view of Ambassador to the OECS and CARICOM, His Excellency Felix Gregoire.
It is celebrated so that OECS nationals can reflect on the importance of unity and what is expected of them as OECS nationals in that whole integration movement.
According to Mr. Gregoire, a lot has been accomplished thus far during the existence of the OECS. Much attention has been given to 2 of the key pillars of economic development in the OECS, namely agriculture and tourism, collectively because of the interconnection of the 2 sectors and individually through specific needs.
There has been a number of institutions that have in fact served the OECS well. For example, we have the Caribbean Central Bank that has been there. And relevant to that is the EC dollar, which was in operation or in use before the OECS was formed. We have the EC dollar, but we have the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank that is dealing with financial matters as far as the OECS is concerned. We have the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court that has been there and dispensing justice in the OECS. We have the OECS Civil Aviation Authority that has been dealing with civil aviation matters dealing with airports, matters dealing with air communication generally. So we have had all those things. We've had the OECS Secretariat involved in a number of programs to do that have benefited the member states.
Other interventions include training in information and communications technology for persons associated with agriculture sector, with particular reference to the collection and management of critical data and related information. It also involves increased efforts towards enhancing agriculture, food and health safety systems in member states. In tourism, work is being advanced on the implementation of an agreed OECS Common Tourism Policy. Programs and policies are being formulated and harmonized in other areas across the member states of the OECS Economic Union, which will yield further significant benefits to the people of the OECS. Areas including manufacturing, construction, information and communications technology ICT, trade policy and trade facilitation, transportation, energy, ocean governance, and the environment.
We have programs in health, for example, the pharmaceutical procurement unit in St. Lucia have been making bulk purchases of medication for all the OECS countries, and as a result, those medication, these drugs, so to speak, would be costing quite less than normal. So we have all those things in place, plus others.
There are a number of agreement binding OECS member states and international arrangements we have to take advantage of, which needs to be approached collectively with strength in numbers as OECS nations. A most defining moment in the history of the OECS to date has been the operation of the OECS Economic Union. This year, the OECS region also embraces 2 years since its independent member states commenced operation of the OECS Economic Union, a new development designed to enhance the way of life for people of the region in the long term. In other news, according to Cuban Ambassador Ms. Juana Elena Ramos Rodriguez, the United States does not have the slightest moral authority to judge Cuba and its people. Ms. Rodriguez says the United States holds Cuba on a unilateral and arbitrary list of state sponsors terrorism with the sole purpose to merely justify the blockade policy against Cuba. She noted that this decision is shameless and it ignores the wide consensus and the explicit demand from numerous sectors of the U.S. society, as well as the international community, to put an end to this injustice.
The U.S. government insists on maintaining this designation despite the total collapse of ridiculous accusations and arguments that has traditionally been used in recent years as excuse for it. The report alleged that Cuba harbors ATA Basque militants, ignoring that this responded to a request of the government's concern in the subject. The report stated also that members of the Colombian guerrilla live in our country, which is an absurd accusation because since 2011, Cuba accompanies the Colombian peace process as a guarantor.
Cuba is accused of an alleged lack of measures present in the Cuban banking system. The United States is intended to justify its attempts to strangle the Cuban economy and adopts new measures to trace financial and commercial transactions, she explained.
The United States government should stop lying and put an end to this exercise which offends the Cuban people and discredits the cause of countering international terrorism. The Cuban soil has never been used and never will be the harbor terrorists of any origin, neither to finance nor perpetrate acts of terrorism against any country in the world, including the United States.
In more news, the Spices Preschool, in collaboration with other preschools, celebrated OECS Day on Tuesday, 18th June at the government headquarters. In an effort to commemorate this day, the preschool organized their annual exhibition, which showcased different artifacts of the 9 Caribbean islands that make up the OECS. The exhibit included pictures of Caribbean leaders, buildings, national dish from different islands, flags, and major attractions. Ms. Deborah Jajak, a teacher at the Spices, said the students and teachers worked hard to put this activity together.
That we were just focusing on today's OECS Day, as we know, and so we focusing on the main events or attractions of the islands, and so we were asked to put some things together, put it together, an exhibition, something to. Well, normally the exhibition is held at preschool, at the school itself, but this year, Ms. Norris decided that it would be better if she spread it around the Roseau area with all the other schools.
Take a look at the creative artwork displayed. They were made by students with the help of their parents and the teachers. other news, the terms chemical accident refer to an event resulting in the release of a substance or substances hazardous to human health and or the environment in the short or long term. However, the fire officers of Dominica informs us that strategies are in place to deal with these chemical disasters. Mr. Kennedy Ferguson, a fire officer, said in relation to a chemical fire, the fire department is always prepared. He said part of the media used in fighting fire also deals with the ability to fight chemical fires as well.
Basically, you can have all type of fires, but then it is start of the fire, the way the fire is started. For example, electrical. A fire might start as an electrical, but might not always remain electrical, because there's always some other combustible material that it will get into contact with and that will continue to burn. So the electrical part of it might be the start of the fire, but it doesn't always continue electrical.
The officer explained that in the event of a chemical fire, one of the first things the department would do is exercise caution in approaching the situation. They would also stay a reasonable distance and use binoculars to assess the intensity of the fire. In the event of the explosion of a petrol tanker, Mr. Ferguson explains what the first reaction of the firefighters would be.
But one of the first things that we will try to do is to cordon off the area and evacuate as much people as possible.
In a Dominican situation, that's going to be difficult.
It is. So that is why we work with other agencies, like with the police, for example. When we receive a call, we always notify the police, you know, so the police in that sense would assist us with cordoning off an area or evacuating people.
AFFF foam is the material used to distinguish this particular type of fire. He also said in this incident they would try their best to prevent the fuel from getting into the sewage system because sewage contains a gas called methane, which could be very hazardous if combined. And in entertainment, on June 30th, 5 beautiful young ladies will vie in the first ever Fête Lodbo pageant at the Pottersville Savannah at 3 p.m. Coordinator of the event, Mickey Morrow, said the show will commence with an award ceremony for the elderly in the Pottersville community.
We recognize in Pottersville we have a lot of young people with talent. Ladies, this time we decided to take the young ladies to mold them. As you know, in these times what happening to young ladies, you know, they're losing their way, young men also, but we decided we're going to take the young ladies and try to mold them into their talent, let them do show off their talent, and in that case, queen show, so that in the future they can probably think of going up to the national level.
Mr. Morrow admitted to having encountered many difficulties during the early preparations for the event. It was extremely difficult to convince the parents to allow their children to participate in the pageant, especially during the examination period, he noted. Another struggle for Mr. Morrow was locating sponsors for the event. However, he managed to convince a few businesses and sent his heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of them. We now go to the clips of the contestants.
I am 16-year-old Connie Saint-Hilaire, representing the Chichelin community and a proud representative of Semani Secondary School.
Okay, so it's the first time that you're participating in a pageant?
No, it is not the first time. I have been in Princess Show 2009.
Okay, what made you decide to take part in this particular pageant?
Well, I decided to take part in this particular pageant because I want the young children to show off their talent, because most of them are scared. So I want to bring out my talent so they can learn from me and bring out theirs. My name is Chanel Francis, and I am contestant number 2.
Where are you from?
I am from the beautiful community of Fonkole.
Okay, why did you decide to take part in this pageant?
Well, I decided to take part in this pageant because I would like to show off my talent, and because I find this going to be exciting. So,
is this your first time participating in a pageant?
Yes, it is.
Well, pleasant good afternoon to everyone. I am 16-year-old Nikki Shamid. I'm representing the street of Stewart Street, Pottersville.
What school do you attend?
I attend the St. Martin Secondary School.
Okay. Is this your first time participating in a pageant?
No, I've participated in previous pageants, such as the Miss Goodwood Primary School, and in first form, I participated in Miss take on that midship.
Okay, why did you decide to participate in this particular event?
Well, I decided that my street is awfully bored at times and there are no kids doing anything positive. So I decided to take a step forward and be positive so that I can show that my street is worth something.
Okay, what are you looking forward to the most?
Well,
Well, my name is Joanna Faustin. I'm 17 years old and I attend the Dominica State College. And I live at Fankole.
Is this your first time participating in the project?
No.
Could you tell some of the projects that you participated in?
Well, I participated in the Mass Jamboree 2013.
Why did you decide to participate in this project?
Well, since I haven't won the previous show, so this time I'm gonna bring out more in myself this time to win the crown.
Okay, what are you most looking forward to in this project?
Well, to build up my confidence more and to bring out myself more to Dominica to take part in bigger shows.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about your talent or not too much?
Well, my talent is going to be more about like African dance.
My name is Anissa Fountain. I representing the Goodwill. I am 14 years old, attending Dominica County High School.
Okay, is this your first time participating in a pageant?
Not really.
Could you tell us about some of the pageants that you participated in before?
I assist in my school, Miss DCHS.
Some of the guest performances include Fanatic, Phase 5, Sankofa Dancers, Hunter, Psy, Skinny, and Dice. Tickets will be sold at the gate at $5 for children and $10 for adults. This has been the local segment of the news. Coming up next, regional highlights.